My name is Tom Clendon, and in this In Conversation series, we're addressing the issues that affect you as ACCA students. And in today's edition, it's all about skills. It's all about the order in which you should tackle those skills papers. And I'm privileged to be joined today by a couple of fellow ACCA expert tutors, Ben Wilson and Erin Morton. So, Ben, skills exams. There are 6 of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain irony of you and I discussing skills exams, given that you specialise in SBR, I specialise in AAA, and it's probably, how many years is it since you last taught a skills paper?
A few years.
A few years, okay.
But I can ask the questions, can't I?
We can be experts anyway, can't we? But I'm going to go slightly rogue here because although we are representing ACCA in this podcast, none of us actually work for ACCA, so we can say things that are slightly off script.
We're independent, we're giving you our personal opinions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the skills papers, people call them by the numbers, right? They've got names, right? But people do call them by the numbers, right? Yep. So it goes from F4 to F9. And you said there's 6, I have to check it on my fingers. But F4, the law paper, is a skills paper, but it's not really. It actually is more like F1 to F3, those multiple choice exams, than it is a multiple choice exam paper. So it kind of sits somewhere between the first level and the second level of ACCA. Then you're into F5 to F9. F5 is your performance management paper, basic management accounting. F6, tax. Then F7, financial reporting. F8, audit. And F9, financial management. They're all quite different. And you might think from the fact they used to be numbered that you should do them in that order. But, well, I don't know if that's good advice. What do you think, Erin?
Not necessarily. It's very much individual choice. I think that's what we've got to come down to. You've got to look at your strengths, but also I think more importantly than anything is that you need to get started. And for me, it would be starting with something that you feel most comfortable with.
A lot of students don't know anything about these subjects. How do they know what they're comfortable with?
Coming in at this level, you've either done BT, MA and FA at the foundation stage.
F1, F2, F3 for those
No. We're on to letters these days. But I was really impressed with your numbers and matching. You did well there. I'm proud of you. Proud of you. But you've got those 3, or you may have come in with exemptions, which means you may have studied as part of your degree, or you might have done another qualification. So you will have some knowledge. You will have some evidence of understanding where you sit. And for me, so if you moved in that order and started with law and then went straight into performance management, you'd scare me away. I like proper accounting. I would have much preferred FR or something, or even tax at the beginning.
Totally with you.
And work through.
Totally with you. But F4, the law paper, if you haven't had any exemptions, that is a good one to start with.
Definitely, yes, because it's on demand for starters, which means you've got a little bit more flexibility as to when you can sit it. You're not structured in that you've got to sit it in 4 sittings in the year. And also, it's more knowledge-based, isn't it? And it is all multi-choice, which does give you just a little bit more confidence. So
I think that is one thing that all 3 of us can agree on. If you're having to do all of the skills exams, you start with F4, you start with law. Right, let's draw a line under that.
Yes.
You said there was a paper there that you were a little bit scared of or you wouldn't want to start with. Let me flip that into a positive statement. You, Erin, what would you start with?
I would have started with tax and FR first. Those would be, I like numbers, I like proper accounting, and so that's something I would have felt comfortable with. Studying, I did my AAT before I did my ACCA, so I had exemptions from the first stage. I already knew that that's where I was most interested in. I really liked that area of what I was learning. So that would have been, and that was my confidence booster. I knew I could get this information out. I could pass that exam much more comfortably. And then all of a sudden you can settle into these exams, can't you? Because if you are feeling more confident, you've got a little bit more power behind you. And then if you are hitting a challenge, it's not right at the beginning when all of a sudden you're like, oh, am I good enough to do this? Everyone's going to have their challenges, aren't they?
Yeah. So you said tax and FR. Would you sit them at the same sitting?
No, absolutely not. Not now there's 4 sittings a year. You don't need to, do you? So definitely trying to cover one subject at a time, getting one under your belt before you move on to the other. And that's how we build.
Yeah. So we're quite comfortable going tax and FR are ones that are good to do early because they're, I don't know, an accountant generally quite likes numbers and calculations, and those will have numbers and calculations.
Yes.
Generally, accountants quite like rules.
Yes.
And those papers are full of rules.
Yes.
And let's be honest, right? They're both quite manageable to pass. If you study hard, both tax and financial reporting are two exams that most students will get through.
Global pass rates suggest that that's the case.
Slightly higher, and our experience of students who put the work in for those papers, they will pass.
Definitely.
Right, and I think it's really important that you start off with papers that actually you are going to have a good chance of passing, because that builds your confidence going into some of the more challenging papers.
That's our definite second takeaway.
Yeah.
The paper you choose at the beginning is a pass. Now, I want to come back and just talk very briefly about tax, because the tax rules change from time to time. And if you're thinking that you're going to be doing tax at strategic professional, maybe you should leave tax to later.
There is a risk, isn't there, that the knowledge from tax disappears when you're covering everything else across that applied skills journey. And then when you come to do advanced tax, a lot of the core knowledge that you really need to bring back quite quickly isn't there anymore. So there is a risk with that.
And you can argue that for financial reporting as well, because you need that for SBR.
Which is a core paper, and you haven't got a choice about SBR.
Yeah.
So there is a downside to what we're suggesting here. We're doing the slightly more comfortable ones first.
Yes.
But that means you've got more time to forget some of that technical knowledge for when you move to the next stage of the qualification and you need that technical knowledge.
Even more reason to do one exam at a time, so that we're not constantly being disappointed and actually slowing down the journey by nailing it. So by doing one exam at a time, you're hopefully increasing your chances.
I'm totally with you there, right? Even for a student who's really strong, if they do one exam at a time, they'll nail it and they'll get 70 or 80%. They'll really understand the subject and they'll be full of confidence.
Yes.
The student who might have scored 65, 70 if doing one paper at a time, and they spread themselves across 2, or sometimes people even do 3, some people even try and do 4, they spread themselves too thinly, they might just pass. Often they fail, and then they get in that horrible resit cycle. So I think we're all on the same page. Doing just one is best for virtually everybody.
And if you smash the exam at skills, and it has a corresponding exam at the strategic professional, FR, DARS, it sets you up for that higher level paper. The pass rates at the higher level paper have got to be higher if you've done well at your lower skills.
Okay,
Definitely.
so we've talked about the ones that are more comfortable.
Yes.
Let's go elephants in the room then. Right, which are the ones that are harder?
Audit.
You think that's the hardest one, or?
It's the hardest to pass, and that's predominantly to do with the structure of the exam. So if we think about the way that one sits in comparison to all of the other applied skills, taking law away, have got 3 sections. You've got A, B and C. You've got multi-choice, you've got objective test questions. So you've got those kind of short answer elements, and there's a bigger percentage of those in those papers. When you get to audit, you've got 2 sections, A and B. You've got 30% objective test questions, then you've got 70%, which is constructive response.
So in like plain English, objective test is multiple choice short questions.
Yes.
Right or wrong.
Yes.
And then constructive response is you've got to, as the name suggests,
Absolutely.
type out, it's a full written answer.
Absolutely.
So audit's got more wordy bits,
Very
more discussion,
wordy.
more...
Yeah, lots of scenarios to review. Not quite as chunky as you'll get at strategic professional, but it's literally introducing you to what you've got coming.
Okay.
And can I suggest that something that might make doing audit a little bit easier, which is to do FR first?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah, so
100%.
again, that's something else we're all agreed on.
Do audit after financial reporting.
Do
Definitely.
FR before
Because
audit.
if you think of what those papers are, right? Financial reporting is learning the rules, right? The rules by which we are creating a set of financial statements. Auditing is checking the financial statements, checking they've been prepared properly. How can you check that something's been done properly if you don't know the rules for how it should be created, right? So you can do them in either order. And you'll read stuff online that says, oh, it's fine, do them in any order you like. But how can you check something properly if you don't know how to create it in the first place?
It's not impossible, but it makes it a lot easier. The other thing I do want to add to you before you go getting carried away is that you don't need all of the FR knowledge to pass audit and assurance. It's only focusing on accounting standards from the foundation stages. So it's not looking at every single accounting standard that you'll review at that one.
Okay.
But being fresh in your mind so that it's much more relevant is definitely a
so
good
having
idea.
that FR knowledge fresh in your mind.
Yes.
is better for when
I
you
would
do
go
audit.
with that one then.
I
Yeah.
agree. I now specialise in advanced auditing, right? So I'm pretty much a one-trick pony now. But back in the day, I've pretty much taught every single ACCA paper, including performance management and financial management. They are tough subjects to pass.
Why?
So performance management is an enormous syllabus. There's a huge amount of stuff in it, and it's all quite abstract. There's things that students won't really have any real world experience of before studying the paper. So you're kind of learning stuff to pass the test. So you might do activity-based costing, for example.
I remember that.
So
I
a costing
remember
technique as to how a company might decide to attribute its cost between products. We're getting a bit niche here, right? But it's the kind of thing that you'd go, I've never thought about anything like this. Doesn't really have much in the way of real-world application to what I do at the minute. And I'm just having to learn it for this exam.
Yes.
And I might get, and it's big, and it'll take me a few days to get my head around activity-based costing, and I might get one question in the exam on it for 2 marks. Or I might get none. Or I might get a 15-mark question that focuses on activity-based costing hugely. But activity-based costing is one of about, I don't know, a huge number of topics like that.
And
So there's a massive amount of studies.
If you've got a big syllabus and the exams are all compulsory questions,
covers,
you've
and the exam covers everything.
You've got to cover the syllabus, haven't
right?
you?
So, and
Yeah.
it's a big syllabus and it's hard, a lot of the stuff. And it's a mixture of calculations and numbers. Financial management is a slightly smaller syllabus, but the technical topics are harder, so it's more difficult. Some of the calculations are even more challenging than the performance management one.
More maths.
More maths,
More maths.
absolutely, more maths. So they're big and technical subjects. You find that where students start early with PM or FM, and that's one of the ones they do early in the qualification, and they do the exam and they don't get through it, they quite often stop at that point.
That's a
because,
shame.
Yeah, you kind of go,
That's a
oh, if
shame.
it's that hard this early on, how hard must it get later? Like, performance management is paper 5, and it feels impossible. How difficult must it get when I get later on? And actually the answer is, it doesn't get any more difficult. Performance management is one of the hardest papers to pass in the whole ACCA qualification. So for me, it's best to leave those ones till later.
Yep, I think I would go with that, particularly if you find that area of accountancy quite challenging as well.
Yeah, because they're management accounting things. If you work in practice,
You're never
so
gonna
you
see
work
it,
as an
are you?
auditor, right, or you work in accounts preparation, or you work in accounts receivable or something like that,
Yeah.
you're very unlikely that you'll ever see any of the stuff
No.
in your day-to-day job that is in performance management or in financial management.
Agreed.
Good. Well, any more, Erin?
No, I think we've covered all bases now, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, so to me it's do the easier papers earlier, build up your confidence, build up the skills you need to tackle the more challenging performance management and financial management. The downside of that is that you will forget some of your tax and FR knowledge. So you will have a bit more recap to do when you come to the later bit of the qualification, but to me that is a compromise that is worth having, worth doing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation, giving our independent, impartial, direct advice. We're independent tutors, to help you navigate your way through the ACCA skills stage. There's a whole series of conversations, and I hope you will look in on another one soon. Thank you very much.